Hey, welcome back to hosting.com Labs and our second special edition focused all on WordPress. WordPress 7.0 is here and it's a bigger update than most. Now, I know what you're thinking. Every major WordPress release gets called a big deal, and then it turns out to be a handful of block editor tweaks and a new default theme. Fair, that's happened before. But 7.0 is genuinely different. There are changes in this release that affect how your team works, how your site looks in the admin, and how WordPress is positioning itself for AI-powered tools in the future. And there's one change that might require you to do something before you update. I'm Ahmed, and today we're going through everything that matters in WordPress 7.0. Not a full feature list. We'll leave that to the changelog. What we're covering is the stuff that affects you, what it means, and what you need to do about it. Let's get into it. The one thing you need to check before you update. Before we talk about anything new and exciting, there is one change in WordPress 7.0 that requires action from site owners. And it's worth covering first so nobody gets caught off guard. WordPress 7.0 requires PHP 7.4 as a minimum. Previous versions of WordPress required PHP 7.2. That minimum now has moved up. And if your site is still running on PHP 7.2 or 7.3, WordPress 7.0 will not be available to you as an update. Your site will stay on WordPress 6.9 and continue to receive security updates, but you won't get the new features until you upgrade your PHP version. How to check your PHP version? In your WordPress dashboard, go to Tools, then Site Help. Click on the Info tab, then Server. Your PHP version is listed there. If you're on PHP 8.0 or higher, you're already in a good position. Over 70% WordPress sites are running PHP 8.0 or newer. So the majority of the people won't need to do anything here. If you're on 7.2 or 7.3, you will need to upgrade your PHP version before updating to WordPress 7.0. In cPanel, this is usually done through the PHP selector. If you're on a hosting.com managed WordPress plan, you can contact our support team and they'll walk you through it. Why updating PHP matters beyond WordPress 7.0. PHP 7.2 and 7.3 are both end of life, meaning they no longer receive security updates from PHP's developers. Running end of life PHP is a security risk regardless of which version of WordPress you're on. So even if you're not rushing to update to WordPress 7.0, upgrading your PHP is worth doing anyway. One more thing before you update anything. Test on staging first. This applies to every major WordPress update, not just 7.0. Before you update your live site, test the updates on a staging environment. A staging site is an identical copy of your site where you can safely test updates, plugin changes, and new features without affecting real visitors. If you're on a hosting.com plan or a managed plan for WordPress, you can create a staging site directly from your control panel. If you're on a different plan, there's a step-by-step guide in our knowledge base at knowledgebase.hosting.com, which is kb.hosting.com. The new admin dashboard. All right, into the good stuff. The WordPress admin dashboard has looked more or less the same for a very long time. Not bad, just familiar to the point of being invisible. WordPress 7.0 changes that, and the update is more significant than it first appears. What's new? The first thing you'll notice is the updated color scheme and typography. It's crisper, cleaner, and more modern. Nothing dramatic, but it immediately feels like a more polished tool. The second change is the one that really changes how the dashboard feels to use. And it's something you notice within about 30 seconds. When you navigate between menu items in the admin, the page no longer fully refreshes. The transition is smooth, the URL updates, the content changes, but there's no white flash and no waiting for a full reload. It feels instant in a way the old dashboard never did. This is the first step in a bigger effort to modernize the WordPress admin and make it feel like a contemporary web application rather than something built in 2006, which, to be fair, parts of it were. What this means for you. If you use WordPress daily, you'll feel this immediately and you'll probably like it. The admin is just nicer to be in. If you manage sites for your clients, particularly less technical clients, this is worth mentioning. A refreshed admin can feel like a new product to someone who isn't closely following WordPress releases, and setting expectations ahead of time avoids confusion. There's nothing you need to configure or enable here. The updated dashboard is automatic when you update to 7.0. Visual revisions. While we're talking about things that make the admin more usable, there's a quieter change in 7.0 that's genuinely useful, which is visual revisions for pages. Previously, comparing two revisions of a page meant looking at technical code changes rather than a clear visual comparison. Text marked up with additions and deletions in a format that's fine for developers and slightly confusing for everyone else. In 7.0, you get a side by side visual comparison of the two-page versions with the edits highlighted. You can see exactly what changed and where without needing to parse any markup. For teams where multiple people work on content, this is a meaningful improvement. Rolling back to a previous version is also clearer now that you can see what you are rolling back to. The note system improvements. WordPress 7.0 is expected to bring several improvements to the notes system that was introduced in WordPress 6.9. Three specific upgrades are planned. Inline comments mean editors can now leave notes on specific selected text within a post, not just on entire blocks. Mentions means you can tag a colleague using @username and they will be notified. Suggestion mode means users without full edit access can propose changes that an editor can then accept or reject, which is very useful for review workflows. If your team has ever managed editorial feedback through a messy chain of emails or comments in a separate document, the suggestion workflow in particular will feel like a significant upgrade. What this means for you. If you work in a team, particularly an agency or a content team with multiple contributors, this is worth exploring as soon as it's available. The suggestion mode alone changes how you can handle client reviews and editorial sign off. There's nothing to configure in advance. When the new feature lands, it will be available by default in the WordPress editor. The Abilities API and AI in WordPress. This is the section that's most forward looking, and it's also the one that least likely to affect your day to day right now. But it's worth understanding because it explains where WordPress is heading. What the Abilities API is. The Abilities API was introduced in WordPress 6.9 and WordPress 7.0 expands its significance. The core idea is this: the Abilities API creates a standardized way for plugins, themes, and external system to understand what a WordPress site can do. Each ability is a clearly defined function with defined inputs, outputs, and permissions. Think of it as WordPress publishing a clear menu of everything it can offer in a language that external tools can reliably read and interact with. On its own, that's useful developer infrastructure. But WordPress 7.0 takes it a step further. The Web Client AI API. WordPress 7.0 introduces what's called the Web Client AI API, which sits on top of the Abilities API and acts as a central connection point for generative AI models within your site's backend. In plain terms, this is WordPress building the plumbing for AI tools to interact with your site in a structured, consistent, and permission-aware way. What this means in practice. Right now, this is infrastructure. You won't see a new button in your dashboard that says, do some things with AI. What you will see over the coming months and releases is plugins and tools built on top of the foundation that can interact with your site in a more capable and reliable way than was possible before. The reason this matter is consistency. Previously, different AI powered WordPress plugins would each build on their own way of connecting to WordPress, which meant different plugins behaved differently, had different permission models, and could conflict with each other. The Web Client AI API creates a single standard for all of them. For most site owners, this is a watch this space development rather than something to act on today. For developers and agencies building on WordPress, understanding this API now puts you ahead of a curve that's going to matter quite a lot over the next year or two. The other editor improvements worth knowing. Before we wrap up, a few smaller 7.0 changes that are genuinely useful day to day. The cover block now supports video embed via URL. You paste in a video URL and WordPress handles the looping automatically. No manual configuration required. Navigation blocks can now be set to show or hide based on screen size. So you can have a different navigation layout for desktop and mobile without needing custom CSS or a page builder. This is a small change with a lot of practical value for responsive design. The font library, previously only available for block themes, is now available for all themes. If you've been stuck on an older theme and couldn't access font controls, that limitation is gone. Pattern editing has also improved with two new modes: Spotlight, which isolates the pattern you are editing and dims everything else, an isolated editor designed for editing template parts, and synced patterns. If you work with reusable patterns regularly, these makes that workflow significantly cleaner. Let's pull it all together. WordPress 7.0 is a release worth paying attention to, not because it reinvents everything, but because several of the changes are ones you will feel every time you use the admin, and a couple of them have real implications for how teams work and where WordPress is heading. Here's your action list from today. Check your PHP version in Tools, Site Health, Info, Server. If you are on PHP 7.2 or 7.3, upgrade before you update to WordPress 7.0. Set up a staging site and test the update there before applying it to your live site. This is good practice for any major update. When you do update, spend 5 minutes in the new admin and notice the smoother navigation. It's a small thing that adds up over time. If you work in a team, keep an eye on the notes improvement. Once they're confirmed live, it's worth running through them with your team. And if you're a developer or agency owner, the Abilities API and Web Client AI API are worth reading up on now. The tools built on top of this foundation are coming, and understanding the infrastructure early is an advantage. As always, if you're on hosting.com and need help with any of this, our support team is available 24/7. And for the full step-by-step guide on PHP upgrades, staging sites, and everything else we covered today, head to knowledge base, which is kb.hosting.com. Links to everything in the description below. Thanks for watching hosting.com Labs. If your team has been waiting for a reason to ditch the Google Docs review workflow, this might be it. See you in the next one.